Do that again, Autumn. Do that again.
Do it again.
I might pull something.
Yeah. There we go. There we go.
Pull something. She's too. Yeah, she's like already like, oh, I can't move. Hello, welcome to Reel Film Snobs. I'm Angela Yeager. I'm pleased to have with me back on the show once again Autumn Edwards. Welcome to the show, Autumn.
Hi, Angela. Thanks for having me.
And Autumn has picked the theme of this episode, which is the cinema of the Shaw brothers. And there will be a photo popping up here. I'm going to let Autumn talk about the Shaw brothers because she is our resident expert on everything Asian cinema and martial arts.
Well, expert might be laying it on a little thick, but I do appreciate good, Asian cinema and martial arts for sure. So, the Shaw Brothers is one of my favorite studios of all time. I'm not typically a person to, venerate studios because they're just like the house behind the actual talent that make the films. But I have to give credit to this studio and the system because they put out some absolutely incredible films and hundreds of them. So the studio, it actually has a very long history. So the first studio, founded by the Shaw Brothers, was founded in 1925. So they go way back. They've got a long history in cinema. So when they come out with the Shaw Brothers eventually, they're not new kids on the block. They are experts of their craft. This specific studio that was started by the Shaw Brothers actually started in 1958 by two of the four brothers that had first, gotten into the movie business. This is by Runmei and Run Shaw. And then when the studio was finally completed in 1961, like the actual location, it was dubbed Movie Town because it was so big. It was the largest studio in the world at the time. It employed over 1,500 employees, and I think was like over 41 acres of land. And it was so large that houses were actually constructed on the property for the studio's most regular crew and actors to live at. So they were constantly pumping out incredible films. It was often called like Little China too, because they had a set for everything. Any kind of set you could think of, they had something constructed that people could film at any time. Really an impressive feat to have been achieved.
It's too bad they didn't, I'm assuming it doesn't exist anymore, if they preserved that into like a tourist attraction and you could like walk through the old sets of the Shaw Brothers. That would have been amazing. But
I would
probably
pay so much money for that. These sets are gorgeous. I mean, I think it's one of the defining features of any of these movies.
Oh yeah, they're like some of the most beautiful movies you'll see. If you like films, which I do, if you like classic Hollywood, you'll like the sets in these films because it's very similar to the way Hollywood made movies in the old days, not the way movies are made now. We generally don't make movies much on sets, but where it's constructed and you can tell it is, but it's beautiful in like a theatrical way rather than a natural or realistic way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, incredible amounts of talent all around this studio.
And you have the Shaw Brothers box sets. It's like how many volumes?
I do. Currently, there are 4 volumes of Shawscope. These are put out by Arrow Video, I think. But yeah, Arrow's done a great job. There have been many other box sets put out by other distributors as well. Shout Factory has several box sets of different films. 88 Films has put out different films of them. I mean, Shaw Brothers produced so many movies that like no single distributor would ever be able to do them all. So they're kind of all around. But I really highly recommend the 4 box sets by Arrow. They are really incredible.
And I think that's the image we are using at the beginning of the show is from Shawscope because that's when I found that was high res. There are some cool images when you type in Shaw Brothers Cinema online, like some old black and white photos from when they started the studio in the 20s. They're not the greatest resolution though. But we're going to talk about just 4 of their films today, which 4 out of hundreds is not very much, but you got to start somewhere. And so Autumn picked these films, I think partially kind of probably thinking about what I might like the best. I'm not sure. Why did you pick these 4 in particular, Autumn?
I mean, certainly, I had you in mind, but I chose these 4 because I wanted kind of a different variety, because the Shaw Brothers put out so many films, as we previously established. I mean, they also did musicals and period dramas beyond martial arts. But I chose these four, which are all martial arts based, because that's like my favorite. But they really represent, even within that genre, I think a wide range of expressions, stories, and themes. And I chose these four really because I also wanted different directors. We actually originally had a different one in place of 8-Diagram Pole Fighter, but we made a slight change. So we only get 3 directors here, but they are 3 of the absolutely most influential, not just in the Shaw Brothers, but in martial arts film as a whole, and in Hong Kong film, just period.
Okay, well, we should get on to our first film, which is Intimate Confessions of a Chinese Courtesan from 1972, directed by Chor Yuen. And Autumn picked this one for me because she thought, courtesans, prostitutes, Angela will love this. So, just kidding. And she was right. So this might be my favorite out of the 4, although Miracle Fighters would be a close second. So this movie, it's also very different from the other Shaw Brothers films I've seen, because I have seen others other than these 4. The story follows a young girl who is kidnapped and sold into prostitution and becomes the primary focus of a police chief's investigation when a series of murders occur at the brothel where she works at. The brothel is called the Four Seasons, which is kind of hilarious since that's a popular hotel chain, and it's run by Madame Chan Yi, who is vicious and beautiful and a very, very hot red lesbian. And I'm not giving anything away. That's pretty obvious. Very early in the film, she declares her distaste for anything to do with men, which is also kind of funny because she runs a brothel. But this film is absolutely gorgeous. You talk about like some of the peak sets and cinematography. Of course, the restoration of the disc that Autumn loaned me to watch this is also part of it. It's just gorgeous to look at. It's like the vivid colors, the reds, everything just pops out of the screen. But it's also like kick-ass women. So if you like something like Kill Bill, for instance, and you like to see women kicking ass, this is the movie to watch. In fact, I can definitely see influence on something like Kill Bill from this film, because there's also, of course, the woman's being abused and raped, and then she takes her revenge. So there's a lot of overlap with that. It's also very, very explicitly lesbian. It's not one of these like, what we're used to of this time period of like kind of, we're kind of just, hinting at it. It's like, it's completely in your face. And so I'm curious. I don't know what the censorship was like for the films in Hong Kong at that time, whether that was an okay thing. But I did read online that this was a huge hit for them. It made several $1 million, which at the time, for a martial arts film was a big deal. So obviously a lot of people went to see it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is colloquially dubbed, I think, like China's first sex film kind of thing. And there's definitely a lot of nudity in here. It is very... I guess racy for its time or in place, I think, in particular in China. But like you said, I think it's really groundbreaking that they have, a very straightforwardly lesbian lead here. I think they maybe get away with it because she's kind of the villain of the piece, and so maybe there's a little bit more leeway for that. But even still, I love evil lesbians too. I think it's just fun to see, any lesbians at any time. And again, in 1972 in China, this is way ahead of its time. You mentioned the gorgeous sets, absolutely beautiful. The costumes as well are gorgeous. I particularly like the setting for this one because it's always, it's winter. It's always snowing. It's really, really beautiful to see, all the snow-covered sets and everything. It just creates like a really wonderful atmosphere for me. Definitely hugely influential on Tarantino. In fact, for Kill Bill, Tarantino had ripped, there's a sound bite actually from a different Shaw Brothers films, Five Fingers of Death, that he rips, where it's like that, bwah, bwah, bwah. Yeah, that super iconic sound is ripped from a different Shaw Brothers film. So Tarantino is intimately familiar with this studio and its works, and definitely very influenced by it. Yes. But like you said, it has a lot of kick-ass women. It's beautiful. I think it's so fun as a revenge story. And honestly, like at the end, I was kind of hoping, when I first watched it, I was kind of hoping the 2 women would go off into the sunset. But of course, that doesn't happen. They had
their code just like Hollywood did.
Yeah,
and
they had
the
their
villain
code.
has to get punished. Sometimes it is funny when you watch these movies, and I have the same thing when I watch old Hollywood movies, and I'm like, oh, but I kind of liked that villain. Why did they have to get punished? But that was the way then, and to a certain degree still is in movies, even though there isn't the same code of conduct. But yeah, this was definitely a huge find for me. I love it. And if you're a Tarantino fan out there, And I know there's a lot of them out there, a lot of bro dudes and stuff who are into Tarantino, and you don't watch the Shaw Brothers, and tisk tisk, shame on you.
Shame on you. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I like the kind of cat and mouse detective and criminal element of this too, right? The police are investigating these killings, like she's, dispatching, a series of her abusers, as she's at this brothel.
Doing a horrible
she's being
job, though, by the
investigated.
way. She's like literally murdering these people
She's
next
very
to the
clever.
police. She's very clever.
She's just super capable. Yeah, we love a girl boss.
Yes. Okay, well, we should move on to the next one.
Yeah, so next we're going to talk about The 36th Chamber of Shaolin, directed by Kar-Leung. I'm probably not pronouncing that correctly, but this is one of the most influential martial arts films of all time, like bar none. Set during the Qing Dynasty, just somewhere between the 16 and 1700s, the Manchu government is cracking down on anti-government movements, and our protagonist, Yuen, played by Gordon Liu, who is an incredible martial artist. He actually makes an appearance in Kill Bill. Everybody loves Gordon Liu. Is a student who is drawn into one of these movements by his teacher. And then the government, of course, begins killing the students and their family and friends, cracking down on the movement. He flees to the Shaolin temple to learn martial arts to protect himself. He's almost rejected because the temple doesn't typically open itself to outsiders, but then he's saved by the chief abbot's mercy. So he stays there for several years, making his way through their 35 training chambers. And then eventually he's given the opportunity to oversee a chamber of his own, and he chooses to create a 36th chamber, which he wants to use to deliver martial arts to the people. He wants it to be open to the public so that they can learn martial arts themselves and defend themselves and better themselves. So I think this one is really great for a number of reasons. One, Gordon Liu is an incredible martial artist. The fights, when they come, are really, really impressive. There are some really amazing exhibition bouts, like in the movie where he's fighting one of the more upper-ranked abbots. And he goes through a variety of different weapons. I love seeing the different styles of fighting. He eventually makes a 3-section staff himself that he finds, kind of by accident, by breaking bamboo, which I think is also very thematic here. Bamboo as this very flexible material that bends but typically doesn't break. And just like that, Gordon Liu needs to learn how to temper himself and, kind of, instead of raging against the problems that he sees outright, he needs to learn to bend a little bit, strengthen himself, and then come back and deliver an ass whooping in the end. But yeah, I just think it's...
Oh, go ahead, sorry.
Go ahead. Oh, I just think it's a lot of fun. One of the highlights of this movie is just like the middle section too, where Kar-Leung does an amazing thing where he makes just training for martial arts seem super fun and exciting. There are like no fights in the middle section. He's purely just training in these different chambers, and it's just super exhilarating to watch, which I think is a great directorial feat.
Yeah, that's one thing I was going to mention is it's like there's these different types of martial art films. They seem to have, they're kind of broken into these buckets, right? There's like the training movie. I've seen quite a few of these with you, where the movie's mostly about someone training, and then there's usually a big battle at the end or something where they show off what they learned. There's the one where you're on a quest, so they have to travel around and go to different places. So there's these like different thematic buckets that martial arts films fall into. I was trying to explain, so I don't know if I ever told you this or not, but when I was young, like elementary school age, I used to watch Bruce Lee films with my dad. That was the first exposure I got to martial arts films. And I was trying to explain to him the other week, like, that there's these other people that are like at this Bruce Lee level, and Gordon Liu is one of them, that are like the top people. I mean, there's probably like a pantheon, right? The top 5 or so martial arts film stars, and wouldn't you say Gordon Lee is one of those?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
What would you say distinguishes him compared to, for example, a Bruce Lee or a Jackie? Well, I mean, Jackie Chan, it's obvious because his style is more comedic. But, like, what would you say distinguishes Gordon compared to the other masters of this genre?
So I think Bruce Lee is an interesting point of comparison because he was certainly, a master martial artist, but I don't think he's as renowned for like being a master of multiple forms of martial arts, whereas Gordon Liu certainly is. I mean, Bruce Lee, I'm sure, has range, and maybe I just haven't studied up on him enough, but like Gordon Liu is a master of many different kinds of martial arts and fighting with different weapons. I think Bruce gets by a lot on his aura. He just has a really cool aura that attracts people to him. Gordon Liu, I think, is great because to me he really embodies like that prototypical like Shaolin monk archetype. You know, like
They're always
he's got the
shaving his
perfect
head.
bald head. Yeah, he looks so great with it. But I think he's just a really solid actor and martial artist. Like he's very reliable in wherever you put him in. Um, yeah, he's like you said, not as like funny as Jackie Chan, but he does have his moments too. Like I do think he also has comedic chops. Like a lot of his failures in this film end up being funny, but he has something about him where it's hard not to root for him.
Yeah, some of his bad wigs are certainly also very funny. It became funny because I was watching this one and then the other movie we'll talk about later. But I was like, this is a theme with Gordon in his films. Like he ends up he has these bad hairdos and then eventually he has to go through some sort of Buddhist trial and has to shave his head. And it's funny when he gets his bald head, we're like, oh, now we know he's going to kick ass. Now this is when the action's going to really start. Is when he shaves his head. Whatever film it is, that seems to be the.
It's the equivalent of people in action movies taking their shirts off. Like, oh, he shaved his head. It's getting serious.
Yeah, he's getting serious now. Yeah, he's ready to fight. So yeah, this one was fun, and I enjoyed. I really liked sometimes the training movies. Some of the ones I've watched, they get a little bit tiresome to me because there's not. I mean, let's face it, I'm a writer, so I like writing, I like plot, and so I mean, not always, but like sometimes it's just like, okay, this dude's been training for like 30, 40 minutes, whatever. But the thing I liked about this one is he's training in so many different locations that are very specific. There's a lot of visual variety, and they're also very funny at times. So like my favorite scene is the one where he's training on the one where they can only use their heads to hit those huge bags, and all these guys are stumbling out with these like red bald heads and huge bludgeons on their heads, and it's funny, but also like they tie in with what skills they have to use by the end when he has the big fight at the end. So I liked that aspect.
Yeah. All right, we better move on to our next one now. So the next one we'll talk about is The Miracle Fighters. This one is directed by Yuen Wu Ping. So this is a film that's also set during the Qing Dynasty, a time when the Han Chinese and Manchu people were not allowed to marry each other. A Manchu soldier, Kar-Leung, is discovered to have taken a Han wife, and the emperor orders him to kill her. He refuses, and of course she is executed. A battle ensues, and Ko takes the prince, a young child, hostage, and while fleeing, though, he accidentally kills the prince. Suffocates him. So he finds an infant under a tree, however, and adopts him, naming him Shu Khan, and he puts the prince's jade medallion on him. Decades later, one of the emperor's sorcerers, because of course the emperor has sorcerers, finds Ko and tries to kill him. Ko is blinded. His adopted son, Shu Khan, tries to find a cure for his father's blindness, and he meets two elderly Taoist priests who were disciples of the same master, but they don't get along very well. So he studies martial arts and sorcery with them and eventually joins a sorcery competition to win the Five Thunder Heavenly Master Order that commands all the magicians in China. That's basically the sum of it. This one is super, super fun. I know, it's like convoluted to get there, but it's so much fun. I think that's the defining feature of this one. You know, the last one is a little bit more serious and introspective. This one is pure entertainment in the best possible way.
And actually, when you're describing the plot, I'm like, oh, that's what happened? Because I honestly, I've seen this twice now, and I couldn't tell you much about the plot. I mean, I sort of get the gist, but like the plot is so convoluted and weird in this movie that for me, I just started turning my brain off, which is not easy for me to do, but I can do it. And just the visuals on this one and the just craziness are there are so many scenes in this movie. I kept yelling out to my husband going, you got to come here and see this scene. You got to see this guy. He turns into a vase. Oh, you got to see this scene. The fish starts talking. There's a scene where a fish starts talking to a guy. I mean, there's just the amount of wild imagination in this movie is like, I mean, this movie has more imagination in 20, 30 minutes than like all the Marvel movies combined.
100%.
I mean, it's just incredible the amount of like chaotic and wild imagination. And yes, is it zany and kooky? Yes, you have to you have to completely suspend disbelief, but that's okay. It's a movie. It's fantasy, right? Like if you can believe a guy flies through the air and that there's kryptonite, you know, you can believe that a guy can turn into a vase and fight while he's inside the vase. You know, they're like, that's what movies are about. It's fantasy, right? So I just enjoyed all the elements of this. There's a really good bad guy, the Yin Yang guy. Yes,
sort
the
of
bat. I called him the yin yang because he always has that yin yang symbol on him, but I know they call him the bat. But he's a great villain because he's like really hard to beat. He is super evil and also cool looking with his crazy hair. He looks like he should have been in an '80s metal band with his hair that sticks out like that. So.
Yeah, this is a movie that I would classify as extremely cinematic. Not in the way that like a lot of things are trying way too hard to be like, stereotypically cinematic with super long shots or whatever artsy fartsy stuff. No, this is a movie that takes advantage of the medium of cinema, right? Like it is playing with the image and using editing and everything in a very clever way to enhance the experience. I think that this movie is very much like picking up, the torch of Georges Méliès, who mixed magic and cinema and was using very clever editing techniques and visual effects. This is 100% that, but you also throw incredible martial arts in the mix, which I think is like a perfect combination. It's extremely funny, and also it's fun because Yuen Woo-ping, in case you didn't know, was actually the fight choreographer for The Matrix. And I think you can see a lot of that in this film, and of course many of his other films. But you can see a lot of those tendencies coming out in the fights here. I mean, there's a section at one point where a sword flies out towards the sorcerer bat, and he does this like Matrix style, lean back dodge to let the sword fly over him thing. And I was like, the Wachowski sisters just reuse this later for The Matrix, and it's awesome. You can feel Yuen Woo-ping's and the Shaw brothers as a whole, their influence on so many action films that would come later.
Yeah, Yuen Woo-ping, really, he's done a lot of other really famous films. I was trying to remember some of the other ones we might have seen, but he's considered one of the renowned filmmakers of this genre.
Absolutely.
I really enjoyed this. The second time even more because I was able to the first time I watched it, I think I was just kind of like, what is happening? And I didn't follow the plot at all. This time I thought, oh, okay, so I get it. There's this prince. Like all of that the first time totally escaped me because there's just so much visual eye candy and stimulation that I was really focused on that the first time I watched it. So the second time I was able to get a little bit more of the plot. But there is just one scene after another. And then especially if you have watched more recent films like The Matrix or any of those styles of movies, you will see a lot of the influence from this movie. So, so definitely a really fun one.
Highly recommend.
Okay, so we'll move on to our last film, and we are going chronologically. We started in the early 70s. Now we're up to the mid 80s. And I think the Shaw brothers went through... Was it the late 80s or early 90s, their film,
I think
their
even
studio?
into early 90s.
Yeah. But they really, this is considered like 60s, 70s, 80s is their peak period. By the mid 80s, they were, like a lot of the articles I read said they've started to, the films weren't doing as well financially or, tastes were changing, etc. So this one is from 1984, The 8-Diagram Pole Fighter. The plot of this is basically there's this family and there's 7 sons, and at the very beginning, the treacherous general of the dynasty traps them all and kills or captures almost all the sons except for 2. The 5th and the 6th son. It's funny, it's not like one you'd remember like the 1st or the 7th. It's the 5th and the 6th. The 6th son goes home and is just like crying and messed up in a ball. And then the 5th son, of course, is played by Gordon Liu, and he is the one who like seeks refuge in a monastery. Per our conversation about Gordon earlier, he goes to a monastery to seek refuge, and they're like, no, you're a fighter. We're not going to take you in. But eventually he convinces them, and he learns the 8-diagram pole fighting technique and, gets it with Buddha, and then eventually, of course, has to kick ass at the end. So did I do an okay job of explaining that plot?
I think that's fine enough, quite frankly.
Okay. There was all these like things about this is the Song Dynasty and this is this, and I'm like, I'm sure this is all based on like real Chinese history and stuff, but like I can't pronounce half the words, and quite honestly it's very complicated for my little American brain. So he's trying to not break his Buddhist vows essentially, but then at the end he has to because they capture his youngest sister, who's also pretty kick-ass herself actually. Kind of made me wonder why the sisters weren't involved, because later on we get to see the sisters do some martial arts. But he has to go and save her because it's for his family. So this one is also a little bit more like 36 Chamber in that it's a little bit more serious, not comical like Miracle Fighters, but also has just some amazing set pieces and throughout, and some great action sequences that I think would probably satisfy any martial arts lover. Curious to hear what you have to say about it, Autumn.
The payoff for this film is incredible. Like, Gordon doesn't do a lot of fighting for a while, but once it finally kicks into high gear, it is like 0 to 100 or real quick. It is awesome. The things he does with bamboo will astound you. It's super, super fun. Like you said, I love that the women kick ass, which is also a recurring theme amongst all Shaw Brothers films. Very, like, this is something that the West didn't catch on to for a long time, but, like, from the get, Shaw Brothers films always had women kicking ass. It's very rare that they are just, like, the damsel in distress. And fun fact about the sister in this one, that was Lau Kar-Leung's wife at the time. And actually, Lau Kar-Leung himself makes an appearance in this film as the hunter who allows Gordon Liu to escape from, his...
The hunter guy.
chasers.
Okay.
Yes,
yeah,
that was Lau Kar-Leung.
Oh.
So I think this is really great. And also you mentioned that you would like to see more of them. So this is based on actual like Chinese history, which at this point nobody really knows exactly what happened. It's been mythologized so much people can't disentangle fact from fiction. But this is actually just the very beginning of a much larger story, and the two women do actually mount like a successful rebellion. They continue this fight for a lot longer. So there's a lot more to this story. This is just one little section.
I think it's because the Chinese, compared to the West, have such a long history. It gets complicated. You're like, which dynasty are we in? I mean, they have like, it makes America. I mean, we're like, oh, here in America, we're like 1700s, 1800s. The Chinese are like, psh, psh, that's like nothing. That's like that's a bat of an eye in our history, right? Because they go back so far, one of the most ancient civilizations. So it's, the big fight sequences at the end. This one felt a little slower to me because there isn't much fighting for a long bit, and it's mostly him training and learning to be at peace. So I was like, okay, when are we going to get to see Gordon fight? I was a little bit like, but it is obviously very famous for a reason, and it is like the things he's doing with the bamboo are absolutely incredible. That's why it's called 8-diagram pole fighter. He's using poles. So this isn't, the typical like sword or even fist play as much. So
And then immediately after, or like as part of the same scene, there's some really awesome stuff that happens with coffins. So if you ever want to see people fighting in and around coffins, this is the movie for you. It's so much fun. It's having an absolute blast with itself. I think it's really cool too, like it's not explicitly stated in the movie, but the 8 diagrams are referring to actually like a set of trigrams, which were diagrams of like sticks that were used for divination, which comes up in the very beginning when the mother, divines that there's going to be a tragedy and she misreads the tragedy. And I think it's really interesting, a couple of things. You can actually see these trigrams for these in the Korean flag. There are 4 trigrams around the yin-yang circle in the center. So that's an interesting connection. But also the whole divination thing and the idea of fate and, cruel fate is really interesting because the second lead in this film, Alexander Fusheng, who plays the 6th brother, who is going absolutely insane. He suffers from extreme PTSD after the slaughter of his family. He actually was tragically killed in a car crash in the production of this movie. He was like 28 years old, rising star. He was going to be huge, and his life was taken just out of nowhere by this car crash. And so the ending actually had to be re-scripted, and so he kind of dies a little bit off screen. It was originally going to end with 5th brother Gordon Liu mercy killing him. So very dark movie, really. But I just think it's interesting that there's this whole idea of fate and everything, and then this tragic thing befell Alexander Fusheng. So, I don't know, that's a little bit of meta information, but it certainly is interesting to watch the movie knowing that.
And we are out of time. We ran out of time actually a while ago, so I've got to wrap up. But thank you, Autumn, for being on the show. As always, have a great day and great movies. Bye-bye. The after party, whoa! And then he'll put up the graphic for the after party, and then that's where you can do your kung fu moves. So, yeah, I'm surprised you've never taken martial arts classes. It seems like something you would enjoy.
You know, I tried when I was a kid, when I was like, I don't know, 9 or 10, and then they were all like, this is about self-defense. And I was like, I want to learn how to kick butt. I don't want to just like, this is way too slow. So I stopped after the first class.
Oh, it didn't work with your attention span.
No, I was like,
thought
I
you were
want
going
to
to
learn
say
how
I
to...
got injured too easily because I apparently just like fall on my face easily per our previous
No, I wanted to learn
conversation
how to
before
kick
taping.
butt, and they were all like, this is self-defense only. And I was like, boo, lame.
You're not a good Buddhist. You're not a good Buddhist, Autumn. It's supposed to be
Yeah.
about protecting, not about harming others.
And that's why Lau Kar-Leung's films would be so good for young me. She had to learn that it's not all about kicking ass. Maybe that will come down the line. But first you gotta control thyself, you know, temper your inner demons. And then you can do that.
Well, you can still learn it now. There's tons of martial arts studios here in the town we live in. So, you know, you could be out there. I see them all the time when I'm driving by different studios, adults and children alike, in their little white robes doing their bows and stuff. So, but yeah, no, I think, what would you say is your favorite, like if you had to pick one, number one Shaw Brothers production, which I know is hard out of hundreds, and you probably haven't seen even all of them, I would imagine. I know you've seen a lot, but if they made that many, have you actually seen them all, do you think?
That is ridiculously difficult to choose. Like, it really depends on the day.
Because it's the
I mean,
directors and everything in the style.
yeah,
Yeah,
there's so much variety.
like you could also say, like, this is my favorite just for the action, but this is my favorite for the story, or this is my favorite in terms of the look. So, like, I would say for
100%,
me,
yeah.
for the look, The Intimate Confessions of a Chinese Courtesan, granted, I haven't seen as many as you've seen, but, like, out of the ones I've seen, that's probably one of my favorites. Is Come Drink With Me a Shaw Brothers production?
It is.
Oh yeah, because we talked about doing that one. That's probably up there for me too, because I know,
Yeah.
and that one's also in like a bunch of lists, like in lists that aren't typically have a lot of martial arts films. Like I think it's in the 1001 films you must see before you die list, which is where I first watched it. Come Drink With Me is considered, just even amongst cinephiles in general, one of the great films. And I
Yeah,
think
it's
that,
huge
yeah.
for so many reasons. One, not least of which, is King Hu directed that one,
Yeah.
who is one of the great Chinese directors of all time.
I know
and
we didn't get
certainly
to
a
review
wuxia.
any of his films. We probably should have picked another one of his too. But
Well, it was going to be Come Drink With Me until we swapped it out for 8 Diagram, because you were like, I've done Come Drink With Me or whatever.
well, and it was pretty recent too, so I didn't want to review something I just reviewed like a few
Yeah.
years ago. So
No, but Come Drink With Me is a landmark masterpiece of the genre, and really just a great film in general.
and also a great
Another-
female character. Yeah.
Yes, right. I was going to say another great female-led movie. It's phenomenal. Cheng Pei, who is one of the great female martial artists of all time, who would later go on to play Jade Tiger in Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. Which, by the way, that movie gets better every single time I watch it, because as I watch all the Shaw Brothers and all these old Hong Kong martial arts flicks, I understand that movie's place in history and how it's drawing on all of these other films, playing with them and transforming them into something new. I think I have just a deeper appreciation for that film every single time I watch it. But yeah, it's absolutely incredible for that reason. It's also like one of the first movies to really popularize his name is something, The Drunken Master, right? Like, it's called Come Drink With Me because a lot of it revolves around, you know, drunken kung fu or whatever. I forget what it's called. But that was a form that became really popular after this movie, because it's just a lot of fun to watch drunk people kick butt. You know, Jackie Chan would go on to star in Drunken Master and Drunken Master 2.
Right.
So, funnily enough, as well, Drunken Master 2 is directed by Lau Kar-Leung. And Lau Kar-Leung also fights Jackie. He's like the first fight in the film. I think he's actually the big bad. It's been a minute since I've seen it. But they're doing amazing stuff around and underneath the train. But Lau Kar-Leung, I think you can tell in all the movies of his passion for martial arts. Like, this is a man that is not in it just because it's like fun, flashy fighting or whatever, Like, he deeply respects it as an art form and as, like, a discipline and a mastery over self and, you know, the elements around you. And you feel that kind of venerance and spirituality come out, especially in things like 8-Diagram Pole Fighter or 36 Chamber of Shaolin. And also, just nerding out here a little bit, because I've been doing a little more research lately, Kar-Leung has a connection to Wang Fei-hung, who is a super famous Chinese figure. He's like a real-life person, but who has been mythologized to the extent that he's, you know, he's achieved like an incredible mythical status, a lot like Wyatt Earp, you know, we have for the West. Real person, but have blown up into incredible proportions through stories. So Wang Fei-hung existed in the 1800s and was very important for, like, he kind of, a lot of his stories revolve around the conflict between Chinese and Western civilization, as Western civilization encroaches upon China, and they're dealing with, you know, the change that comes with that, trying to maintain a national identity while they're being, you know, invaded essentially by British people or who knows what, whatever at the time. But anyway, master martial artist, academic, physician, he's super well renowned. He took on a student, he took on several students, but one of his favorites was nicknamed the Magnificent Butcher, which, funnily enough, there is a movie called The Magnificent Butcher, and in that movie, the Butcher is played by Sammo Hung, one of the other great, you know, screen martial artists of all time. But, so that's a fun connection itself. The Magnificent Butcher's favorite student was, he actually had, like, two that were brothers. One of these brothers, I think, went on to play Wang Fei-hung in, like, 50 movies or something. Like, it's an extremely long series, extremely popular series. So he played him there. And then his favorite student, in turn, was Kar-Leung. So, yeah, there are like 4, you know, little connections there to get to Kar-Leung, but he does have this very direct connection to this mythological Chinese figure, which I think is super cool, and I think also, you know, informs a lot of that respect for the martial arts and everything. And it's fun because Jackie Chan plays Wang Fei-hung in Drunken Master. So, you know, Kar-Leung is directing Jackie, playing this character that taught his master's master, you know, kind of thing.
That's interesting. Yeah, I looked it up here, and it looks like, oh yeah, there's a character in Come Drink With Me called Drunken Cat, but there was also, there was a Chinese TV series with the same title called, it's a Sea Drunken Hero. So I think there was the drunken type of thing.
Very popular.
Yeah.
For good reason.
Yeah. It's just, it's fun, all these, and I love the names in these martial arts films, like Golden Swallow, Drunken Cat, Jade-Faced Tiger. I mean, they're just,
they're like, great. They're so descriptive and fun.
Yeah.
And also, fun fact, kind of totally doubling back, but to Intimate Confessions of a Chinese Courtesan, Chor Yuen, though we don't know him as well in the West, he's, of course, very famous in China and everything, incredible martial artist himself, very talented individual. He was one of the 7 Little Fortunes, which were a group of prodigies out of the Peking Opera that trained Sammo Hung, Yuen, Jackie Chan, and others. So those 3 were also 3 of the 7 Little Fortunes. Chor Yuen was in that group. Those 3 went on to become the 3 dragons, as it were. But all that to say, you know, they come from the same roots, and you can definitely feel that in Chor Yuen's choreography and everything. It's really top-notch. It's really, really fun to watch.
Well, we'll have to do another Shaw Brothers episode at some point, pick 4 totally different kind of films, and I will rely on your expertise to pick them because I am just treading in these waters where you have dived deep. That's a terrible
I have
analogy.
Swum around. Yes. Absolutely.
Yes.
I adore these films.
I have put my toes in the water of these films, but you have dived deep and swum deep into the ocean of the Shaw Brothers films. So thanks for doing the episode with me. That was fun.
Of course. Yeah, thanks for letting me do it. I want everyone to watch these movies. They're so good.